Welcome back to What's Next Garage. Thanks for coming by. Today, we're going to be taking the intake and the valve covers off. First, we're going to start with the battery positive terminal. Now, I don't know why everybody just takes the negative off and not the positive. So if anybody knows, I tried to figure out why everybody takes off the negative instead of the positive. And I took the positive off, so we'll see how that works out. I did later on take off the negative before I took the ECU out of the system, but for now I just ran with the positive battery cable disconnected. So first step, when we get into the intake and the valve covers, is getting the accessory belt off, and that's just figuring out what size it is to actuate the tensioner, and then you release the tensioner. So I start working on the starter and take the plug out, and then I'm working on the hardware behind it. The starter's actually really tight in its bracket there, so I had to release that with a wrench before I could get it to break free with my cordless ratchet. Once those are loose, I get a pry bar and got to kind of pry it out of there. It comes out. Then you take the bracket off, so the power steering pump is actually part of that bracket assembly. And right here I'm actually looking for the bolts, the remainder of the bolts that were holding it in. So there's a total of 5 bolts. Little did I realize that there were 5 bolts. So I tried to just remove the 3 that were easiest to get at. That didn't work. So then I found this bolt on the side, and then there's 1, 2, 3, and then there's one down there for 4, and then there's one right around the corner for 5. So there's actually 5 bolts that hold that power steering and alternator bracket. So as you're going through, these are the injector plugs. The light green is the lock. So you just lift that up and then squeeze it. I didn't go through it. It worked really easy. All of mine did. This plate in the back, I believe, is just to contain the wire looms that come through. And then you just slowly work out all your plugs. It's going to be, either side is going to have the 4 fuel injector plugs. There's some plugs to work out on the back side of the manifold. Biggest thing is to take your time. Here I can't get the power steering pump to stay out of the way, so I bungee cord it. So I just hooked a bungee cord up to pull it off to the side. Then it doesn't keep flopping in my way. Then I come back into the engine bay and continue to work on releasing all of the plugs. As you can see, it just takes a little bit of finesse to get the fuel line off. I did bleed the pressure off of the fuel injector rail, but it just takes a little bit of work to get the fuel line off. Now I'm not sure what this next connection is for, but you can see I'm prying it up with my pick. That's not the right way to go about that. And I tried a little bit and then I stopped, because that's not one that pries. It actually pushes down. As you can see, I just saw that it pushes down. So push it down, pull it off, presto, no prying. If I'd have went a little bit more crazy with that, I could have easily broken it. Now there's 10 bolts on the intake, and I believe they're 8mm. The first front 6 are easy to get at. The other 4 are underneath that firewall. Well, actually underneath the windshield wiper deck lid, I guess you could call it. So you have to go in there with a different tool, a little bit shorter extension. They come out, but they're not a horrible pain. So 8mm does the trick. And then before you take the intake out, make sure you go through and take a magnet and pick all of the screws out, because if you leave any screws behind, what happens is they catch when you're pulling it out. Because I had one that was stuck on the back right side, and you'll see here in a little bit that it was a little bit difficult to pull that intake manifold out. So here I have my magnet on a stick, and I'm just working the hardware out of that intake. It's a little tricky, but not undoable. I'm trying to get into the back. I think I'm catching the back one, but I didn't. So you can see I'm lifting it up, trying to pull it forward, and it seems to be hung up. But if you look, I'm reaching back there now, and that's the one that I left in there. And then it comes out really easy. You just have to make sure you take your time, verify that you have everything unplugged. Then the last thing you'll do is pull that vacuum line off of the brake booster and pull it out. Now the styrofoam is in there, or the foam is in there to keep rodents from nesting underneath the intake. I don't know how well they work. Here I just vacuum it out just to get all of the debris and stuff out of there. So a clean work area is easier to work in. So in order to get the passenger side valve cover off, you first have to take off the coil pack bracket. So 4 coil packs are bolted onto a plate that then bolts on top of that exhaust manifold. The first 4 bolts of that bracket are really easy to get at. You see there I got my AC Delco cordless ratchet going to town. Now I see that I have a 5th bolt in the back, and I'm trying to work over the top of the coil pack that's there. So I got a wrench, I'm trying different extensions, I'm trying universal joints, and pretty much nothing is working back there. Then eventually I figure out that I have to take that back coil pack off of the bracket, off of the plate. So I pull that out of the way, and then because that bolt is so tight against the firewall, it's just a pain in the butt to get out of there. So you'll fight with it, but if you know it's back there and you know you have to pull the coil pack off, it makes it much easier. So here it only took me less than a minute to get it out, whereas I fought with it for probably 5 minutes to get it to come out. So now I come over to the driver's side, and the driver's side doesn't give me much trouble because they're all pretty easy to get at. I can use the ratchet on 4 of them, and then the 5th one being tight up against, well, it's not even exactly tight up against that back firewall. It comes out pretty easy. So once I get the valve cover out, I'm done for the day, so I decide to organize my tool cart. Tool cart can take quite a beating when you're in the heat of the battle, because you're just grabbing tools and then you're throwing them back on the cart. But I appreciate everybody watching. Thanks. And next one will be taking the heads off and cleaning everything up. Thanks a lot and have a great day.